Hello everyone and welcome to the Daily Signal's Top 10. And today we're counting down the top news stories of the week, many of which have gone either misreported or underreported in the mainstream media. I'm Ginny Maltabano, and here with me to break all of this down is my colleague at the Daily Signal, Jarrett Stepman. He's also the co-host of the podcast Right Side of History. Hello, Jarrett.
Hello.
Well, it was another crazy week, but something we saw this week on the lighter side of things, it was National Lookalike Day. And you were saying in the comments one time, someone said you look like a comedian from The Hangover.
Yes, Zach Galifianakis, I think that's how you pronounce his name, but I think some people said in the comments section that I look like him. I see a little bit. What do you think?
I think the facial hair for sure.
Yeah.
I can see. Funny guy.
Pretty funny. A little funny looking, but that's okay.
All right, well, that's fun. All right, first up this week, the Comey Memos were released. Watch this.
The Justice Department is also expected today to begin the process of letting Congress see your memos detailing your interactions with President Trump. Is that the right decision, to let Congress see them?
I don't know, because I don't know what considerations the department has taken into account. It's fine by me.
You don't care? I
don't care. I don't have any views on it. I'm totally fine with transparency. I've tried to be transparent throughout this, and I think what folks will see if they get to see the memos is I've been consistent since the very beginning, right after my encounters with President Trump. And I'm consistent in the book and try to be transparent in the book as well.
All right, so the Comey Memos have been released. It's back in the news cycle as he is going on his book tour. Jarrett, President Trump tweeted basically there's no obstruction, no collusion. What did you make of the memos?
Yeah, I mean, I did think it was interesting. And part of it, I would say the memos didn't necessarily Comey look all that great. Of course, I think we discussed last time, he's kind of portrayed himself as the last honest man in D.C. And frankly, some of his actions seem to be a guy who's trying to a certain extent, orchestrate these stories. I mean, one of the things that was revealed is that he actually had a meeting with President Donald Trump in order to kind of create a news hook for networks like CNN and these other networks, so they'd have a kind of hook so that they could talk about the Steele dossier and all these things, which, look, that doesn't, I guess you could say he could do that, but at the same time, that doesn't look like a guy who's just trying to get to the truth.
Right. It seems very disingenuous, especially when he's talking about whether or not the president is morally fit to be president. And he's going on this giant book tour. His ego seems to be very large.
It does. And I have to say, certainly there are a lot of people that are very much interested in what Comey has to say, but I think there's been a little bit of a letdown. I think, we have a local bookstore in Washington, D.C., Kramer Books, that people were expecting to be a line out the door, and for the most part, it was mostly just journalists showing up there. So I don't think this is quite getting the traction in the public that I think he was expecting, and he wanted to turn this into a big thing. I think people just kind of see him as another guy who's trying to have a good 10 minutes of fame, and that's about it.
Maybe it missed the mark a little bit. All right, number 9, DOJ has sent a referral for Andrew McCabe to a federal prosecutor. All right, so Andrew used to be number 2 at the FBI. This has been very back and forth, but now we know he lied under oath 3 or 4 times, right? So some on the left want to make him out to be this hero, but he's clearly a liar and also leaked information.
Yeah, it's interesting because even Comey kind of threw him under the bus too. And before this whole thing went down and Trump maybe fired him, maybe he retired early. Of course, there were some questions about his pension that he wasn't going to get that was worth a lot of money. There were kind of questions around this, and McCabe was kind of portrayed as this kind of martyr, this hero who was fired for political reasons. Well, now it comes out there were actually very specific reasons for his firing that may have been a lot deeper than was originally reported. And I find it very interesting. There was this GoFundMe page that was set up to pay for his legal defense where he made over $500,000. I mean, where's that money going to go? There's some people out there who probably want their money back or out now.
That's a great point to make, and that'll be interesting to follow. All right, number 8, it was very sad this week. Former First Lady Barbara Bush passed away on Tuesday at the age of 92. Watch this.
Well, she was warm and wonderful till you got out of line. And she wasn't too warm and wonderful. No, she was awesome.
She was funny and fierce and said her mind. She was a great role model for me, for sure. I learned how to be a first lady.
All right, there you saw Bush 43, Barbara Bush's son, talking about her. This was actually the day after she passed away. He had an event in Dallas about leadership, and he said, of course, I was not going to cancel. She would have wanted me to go through with it. I thought he had some great words to say about her, and it is a huge loss for the country.
It really is. She is definitely one of the most, I would say, one of the most prominent first ladies we've ever had in the history of this country. I mean, she's the only one who's been both the mother of a president and also the wife of a president. The only other one was Abigail Adams, who was, of course, very famous, John Adams and John Quincy Adams. And certainly she was, the woman behind the scenes who, pushed her husband, pushed her sons to be in politics. And I think she definitely leaves a very long legacy. What do you think about her legacy, Jenny?
I think her legacy is incredible. She was always a little bit ahead of the curve. She gave several speeches that have now kind of been brought back into the public sphere about feminism, how motherhood is important, but so is public service. Like Dana Perino was saying on her show, because she was very close to the Bush family, yes, she never had a paying job, but she gave everything she had to her family and to the country, and it's very admirable. Her funeral is actually in Houston today, and so I know the First Lady Melania is representing the White House. Very sad.
Yeah, actually, I really like the statement that was put out by George H.W. Bush, and coming out after this, it's basically reassuring the American people, saying, don't worry about the Bushes. We're okay. This married for 73 years, handled this with such dignity and grace. It's really incredible to see.
I know, they're a great family. All right, number 7, there's a Fresno State professor who called Barbara Bush an amazing racist after she passed away. Check this out.
Well, I was shocked and horrified by them. I saw them last night, and that's when we sent out the statement. Obviously, Dr. Girard's comments don't align at all with the university's core values, and I condemn the tone and substance and timing of the comment that she made yesterday.
So you just heard that, which a lot of people rightly are appalled by. I was. What did you make of this?
I mean, I kind of expected to see something like this after, and it is disappointment. We talk about sometimes civility in society. Obviously, this is a case where somebody said something very nasty just after the death of Barbara Bush. But, there's some people calling for her firing right now. I think that's maybe a little extreme in this case, although she did post online a number saying, call me at this number if you want to debate, and it was actually a mental health hotline.
Which violates university policy, right?
Yes. So I think there are some people saying, well, this is hypocrisy on the part of conservatives saying that we should fire this professor, but at the same time, she violated school policy and did something that was pretty serious, quite frankly.
I think you can recognize this was absolutely disgusting, but also recognize how important freedom of speech is, especially on college campuses, but certainly in very, very poor taste. All right, number 6, Rudy Giuliani has joined President Trump's legal team. Did this surprise you?
It surprised me a little bit. I mean, look, Giuliani hasn't really been, practicing lawyer for a long time. Of course, he was a fairly famous district attorney, helped basically put a large part of the mob behind bars. So he does have a very, I would say, storied career. And there are some, questions about is this a kind of end stage of the Miller investigation, of this kind of investigation? Is he going to kind of deal with the end stages of this? So I think it's an interesting choice. I mean, certainly you couldn't get a bigger name to defend yourself.
And my first memories of him were during 9/11, the leadership he showed, and so clearly he has some good qualities. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where this leads. All right, number 5, so Mike Pompeo, the director of the CIA, had a secret meeting with the leader of North Korea. Watch this.
I think it made a lot of sense for him to be the person to meet with him. I hope we have other officials that are doing the same thing and setting this meeting up so that it has a good chance for success. So I thought it was very much a positive.
He was asked both in private meetings with me as he was pursuing his nomination and with other members, as well as in open sessions, direct questions about North Korea. And, I think it would have been incredibly not only insightful, but if truth and being forthcoming as the Secretary of State nominee is one of the standards we'd like to see for the next Secretary of State, I think he failed that.
Look, I think it shows the importance of Pompeo's nomination as Secretary of State. There are people who want to play politics with his nomination, but you can see that he's very deeply involved in one of the highest level talks this country has ever had with a dictator who is threatening the United States with nuclear weapons.
So I know we say this every week, but it was another crazy news cycle. But to me, this was a massive story that completely, we were just saying, got totally buried. And a lot of people are very upset by this, but it's not unprecedented for a president to send a representative in advance of a huge summit or meeting.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a big deal. I mean, even this kind of meeting with the North Korean regime, it could lead to some things that, you know, certainly in my lifetime we never thought we'd come to, which is a changed dynamic in our situation with North Korea. Of course, they are one of the foremost threats, frankly, to world peace, frankly, to the United States. This is a really big deal. Having him meet with the North Koreans, now nothing has come of it yet. You know, we should certainly withhold some of our judgment as far as what comes out of this. But look, there have been some reports that we could potentially actually see an officially declared peace between North and South Korea, which has not actually happened since the end of the Korean War. That's a big deal.
Huge deal, and a lot of people don't realize it was never formally ended.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that there's still hostility on the border in that country. Of course, there have been, you know, missiles fired back and forth in the past. There's been artillery strikes. This is not a peaceful situation, and getting something to change in this, I think, is a very big deal that shouldn't be overlooked.
To me, this follows an unfortunate trend of President Trump having success in foreign policy, and it always gets skewed or frowned upon, you know, by the left. Take ISIS, for example. He's done great things. It never gets talked about. With North Korea, he's doing a good job. Like you said, stuff could go wrong, but he is pursuing it the proper way, and it could have massive ramifications around the world if this goes right.
Yeah, and we, of course, we have to withhold some of our judgment to see what comes out of this, and we do hope it's something good. It could just be, you know, things muddle along with North Korea, but this offers, it shows that, look, a little bit of aggressiveness toward North Koreans saying we're not going to put up with the things that you do, we're not going to put up with all these tests and all these strikes, plus a little good old diplomacy. Maybe it'll work this time.
It's promising. We'll have to see what happens because anything can happen. All right, number 4, the New York governor has granted 35,000 paroled felons the right to vote. Check this out.
I'm undocumented. You want to deport an undocumented person? Start with me, because I'm an undocumented person.
So he says in that clip that he is undocumented, which is false. And also he talks about how he's an Italian immigrant. His parents his family came from there. Okay, my family immigrated from Italy as well. We did it the right way. I'm obviously documented. I'm a U.S. citizen. I would never say I'm undocumented. To me, it was very bizarre.
It was very bizarre. I mean, honestly, he's the privileged member of a political dynasty in New York. Yeah. I mean, there's nobody questioning that, who's now in a very, very tough race with somebody who is challenging him. Cynthia Nixon, who's one of the stars of Sex and the City, an old HBO show. It's kind of a strange situation. I think there are a lot of people that are curious about this race now because of Cynthia Nixon's inclusion. And frankly, I mean, look, you could see this move. You know, he's trying to kind of shore up, you know, kind of his left-wing flank, where a lot of people, he's taken a lot of criticism there, and he's saying, well, let's go have these felons vote, which, look, Jenny, I don't know about you, but it's a very strange situation to say that these felons deserve a right to vote, which he's doing by executive order.
I know this is bizarre because how are people supposed to fight back on this? He's clearly moving very far to the left. To me, this says that he perceives Nixon as a real threat because what he's doing just kind of doesn't really make sense.
Right, and you know what? It's interesting because of course there's a Republican-dominated legislature there, and he might have thought, well, I can't get something through. And look, this idea that felons should have a right to vote, there's a reason why we don't often let felons vote. Is because they've already shown that they're breaking the laws. Should they be participating in making the laws? And I think that is a very big distinction. So this is potentially a reckless thing to do from a guy who's, you know, trusted with a lot of power.
That's a great point. We'll have to see what he says next. All right, number 3, GQ says that the Bible is one of the most overrated books. So I guess when in doubt, make fun of Christianity, make fun of the Bible. I couldn't believe this.
This is actually incredible, and I took a look at the list, and it was a terrible list of all these books that you shouldn't read, including Larry McMurtry's Lonesome Dove, which is a great book because classic book that she said had toxic masculinity in this article, this GQ article, and so, you know, a frankly ridiculous thing to say that the Bible is a poorly written book. Frankly, it was in many ways the cornerstone of Western civilization for the last couple thousand years, and certainly American history. You really cannot be a literate person. You can't understand the debates that have happened through our history. You can't understand the speeches of Abraham Lincoln if you don't have some understanding of the Bible. To say that this is a bad book or that you shouldn't read it, frankly, even if you don't believe in it, it's something you should read for any literate person. It does go to what I believe is a change in society where we don't know about religion. And I think there's kind of a religious ignorance in this country that I think is very dangerous.
Yeah, and religion is just so crucial, and for them to just cast it aside as just this book. I think even if you don't believe, you have to recognize the importance to so many people around the globe. And I think it's important for people to say, wait a second, that's not okay. Wait a second, that is important.
Absolutely. And so, you know, I wouldn't take her advice on this one, that's for sure.
Yeah, great point. All right, number 2, Bernie Sanders is saying that Cardi B is right about Social Security. So she's been in the news a lot about different political topics. So first taxes, now Social Security. She also talked about how she's pregnant, she's keeping her child and pursuing her career. So what she said about Social Security was a little bit more liberal, so naturally Bernie's latching onto that, but taxes, she was very conservative on.
Well, it's kind of a funny situation. Of course, she's a musician. She's she plays music. She's a rapper and things like this. So you wouldn't necessarily see her as somebody who is necessarily somebody who sees policies in a kind of measured way. But her comments were interesting because when she talked about taxes, she says, "Where's all my tax money going? Where is all this money going?" Well, the truth is, most of it's going to programs like Social Security. It's going to Medicare, which is a huge part of our system. It's going to these programs which are growing constantly. I mean, we talked last week about Paul Ryan leaving Congress. You know, big thing that he's wanted to do is entitlement reform. Stop making this so expensive. We have a mushrooming budget. It's costing people like Cardi B more money. You know, we need to find a way to get this under control. I mean, there's certainly maybe a little bit of dissonance there, but yeah, I want to know where the money's going to, and it's going to these bloated programs that are getting out of control and ultimately are going to go bankrupt.
Yes, I'm with her on that. I wonder, maybe she'll tackle foreign policy next week. We'll see. All right, number 1, our last story today, a Southwest pilot exhibited just this excellent bravery from a flight that went very, very badly. Watch this clip.
Could you have the medical meet us there on the runway as well? We've got injured passengers.
Injured passengers, okay. And is your airplane physically on fire?
No, it's not on fire, but part of it's missing. They said there was a hole and someone went out.
I'm sorry, you said there was a hole and somebody went out?
South 1380, airport's in sight. Switching tower, good day.
So that was the pilot just talking so calmly on the phone with air traffic control. Many say her behavior during this entire ordeal saved all 148 people besides the one lady who unfortunately passed away afterwards. But it was this pilot's bravery that really saved everyone.
Yeah, I listening to the audio on this it's stirring to hear such calmness in the face of great danger to herself, to the passengers. I mean, she really sounded like she was ordering a cup of coffee. And, you know, this goes to show, I mean, this woman who's Chami Jo Schultz, who's a Navy pilot, who is somebody who's had to be cool under pressure. And it's just amazing hearing her be so polite, too. That's so what struck me. She's so kind. She says, well, can you please bring out the safety crews and things like this? And, you know, it really shows. You know, there is courage in American society. I mean, we see so many bad examples every single day of people acting terribly, but here's somebody who quietly did her job for a very long time and, you know, had an actual act of courage. I mean, I think that term has been so, you know, overused, but this is really an act of courage.
It is, absolutely. And did you see that Congresswoman McSally drafted a resolution to honor her heroism, which I think is great.
Yeah, you know, I think we do need to honor people like this. I think it's absolutely appropriate. Obviously, Sully Sullenberger years ago, you know, had a similar incident where he crashed a plane into the Hudson and saved all the passengers, and this is kind of the Sullenberger of the Southwest. And, you know, maybe there'll be a movie sometime down the line. Her life story seems very interesting to me, and her background is really incredible. And, you know, if you want to talk about feminist heroes, here's one right here. Here's one who should be celebrated for a real act of courage, incredible bravery, and saving all those people. Really remarkable thing.
I think that's a great note to end it on. Before we go, I have to plug, Jarrett had a great piece out this week about how California became a liberal fiasco, and I encourage you all to go check it out and read it. Thank you for joining us this week. We'll see you back here next week. Same time, same place. Have a great weekend. Thank you.